Kevin Durant is on his way out of Phoenix. I'll ask Matt and Hayes where it all went wrong and where KD will land next. Plus, Podcast P takes a podcast pause, and the Pistons put a beat down on the boys from Beantown. That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Doug Branson, host of the Locked On Hornets podcast and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts. From the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network, he's the man of 1,000 podcasts, Matt Moore. Matt, if you paused podcasting, do you think you could put up 25, 8, and 7?
I'm trying to think of what league I could do that in. I don't know. My daughter's got like a third grade league. I might be able to do that, but I'd probably get winded half. My per 36s though, those would be good, Doug.
And for the Locked On Bulls podcast, the Prince of Petty, it's Hayes.
The Chicago Bulls lost yet again in a competitive game. I'm happy.
Everything's turned. I was looking on Tankathon today for Locked On Hornets, a website that, tracks the odds and does mock drafts. And they track the winning streaks for each team, except the wins are in red and the losing streaks are in green, which I think is just a beautiful detail that Tankathon puts into their product. All right, let's talk about our first topic today. Lead story. ESPN's Brian Windhorst says the Phoenix Suns are going to trade Kevin Durant and that Kevin Durant knows that. Before we talk about landing spots and packages, let's do a little bit of table setting. Why didn't this work in Phoenix, Matt? How much of that do you lay at the feet of Kevin Durant, and how much of that do you lay at the feet of other players or of management?
Oh, boy. I'm trying to be a nicer version of myself, so I don't want to. Maybe it just didn't work out. Like, maybe it just like things just don't work out sometimes. Like, they didn't work out in Brooklyn. Yeah, I think it's tough. I put a little bit, honestly, I think, on Devin Booker. They have such a big leadership gap there. And to me, that's a big problem. KD is a guy that he just wants to come in and he just wants to hoop, man. Like, that's what Kevin Durant wants to do. He just wants to hoop. That's what he cares about. I've said this before, and I really believe it. I don't think anybody likes basketball more than KD. And so he just wants to come in and hoop. But the problem is, in the NBA, I think you need a leadership structure. And it's hard when KD's the best player, but he's not your leader. And Devin hasn't really stepped up and become that, hasn't taken over that role. So it just hasn't really come together. They've switched out coaches, all of which were really good coaches. Monty Williams is a good coach, regardless of what happened in Detroit. Frank Vogel won a championship with the Lakers. He's a very good coach. Mike Budenholzer won a championship with the Bucks. He's a great coach. It simply has not worked. And I do think there's something to the fact that KD has to be in the right role, Hayes, and he can't be your best player.
Those are strong words from Matt Moore there. I mean, KD's been a part of a lot of failed super teams, but I'm still going to blame this on management overall. Like, you made a move to bring in Bradley Beal with no point guard and try to convince yourself for the first part of that Bradley Beal was going to be your point guard. You then had the highest salary in the league for a team that just it's not even going to make the play-in. So. I not to say that the players don't have their place in it. They absolutely do, because there's been some disappointing performances from players and things like that as well. But I look at this overall as management, because this wasn't just a talent issue. This was a balancing of talent issue. And for me, I put that largely apart on management.
Yeah, I don't know, though, because it's just look, that when we came into the season, we didn't think that they'd be this bad. They shouldn't be this bad.
They shouldn't be, yeah.
These are still talented players. Even it's Bradley Beal's a lot closer to Tobias Harris than he is to Chris Bosh. Fine. But he's not god awful. He's not a zero. He's Carlos Boozer +2 is the range of what we're talking about here, right? It shouldn't be this bad. So when you've got something where the pieces are there, that if you look at it on paper, then there's something that's not on paper. And that's why I go to the intangible stuff. Is that, to me, that has to be the conclusion, because the tangible stuff, it doesn't make any sense that they're this bad.
It's definitely confounding, and now we hop on the train to speculation station, where we try to find out where KD. There we go. Now you're in the spirit. We are going to find out, or at least speculate on where KD could land next. That was part of the conversation of today's episode of Locked On Suns. Let's take a listen to that.
What do you think, from everything we've heard and seen and what we can tell about the situations across the NBA, where do you think he would want to go most?
I think the sneaky team to watch out for, and I think the actual reason why he said no to the Golden State Warriors, because he know that would have been a 1, 2, 3 year commitment, is because he wants to link up with his buddy Kyrie Irving. And I think back channels, teams talk, whether it's, people can talk about, tampering. It happens all the time, but the Dallas Mavericks make a lot of sense for Kevin Durant. So I think that's probably the team that makes the most sense for him, because Dallas is going to be so desperate about not losing Kyrie, who has an opt-out this year, for him to go to the Lakers.
Okay, what do we think? Hayes, what are the landing spots that make sense to you? Does Dallas make sense for Kevin Durant?
Dallas makes a whole lot of sense for Kevin Durant if they can swing it and make it happen. I mean, you're able to keep Kyrie, and if you can find a way to keep AD and the defensive centers, at least one of them that they have, and add Kevin Durant, you can sign me up for that team. So I'd say Dallas probably does make a lot of sense. I'm still hopeful of a reunion with the Golden State Warriors too, just because I just think that's a great storyline to have. But Dallas makes a lot of sense.
So Kyrie Irving is a Nike guy, or he was a Nike guy, and Anthony Davis is a Nike guy. Hey, who does KD's shoes? Like, just real quick, is it it's not Adidas? No, is it? That's right, it's Nike. So that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that they're going to be able to pull off that deal just because of the money. They can move Gafford and some other stuff. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but the Suns aren't going to get a whole lot out of this anyway. This is not because I cover Locked On Nuggets. It's really not. I find that to be an incredible fit. He wants to play great basketball. That's what he talked about when he went to Golden State, was he wanted something different and he wanted to play great basketball. The Nuggets play a really great brand of basketball. Everybody eats. The ball always moves. He doesn't have to be the best guy there. He gets to play next to the 3-time, possibly 4-time MVP. It fills a lot of gaps there, and the Suns would actually be able to get a player in return who would actually provide them with somewhat of a boost in the immediate. That, to me, makes a little bit of sense. That, to me, it seems like a pretty good plan. The other one, I'll return to this one because they kicked the tires on it. Both the Milwaukee Bucks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Those were two teams that both called about him. I love the idea of him with the Bucks. I think that is such a phenomenal story. Dame, KD, Giannis. I don't know that you can get away with 3 stars in the Supermax era in this new CBA, but that's close. If you're going to do it, that's about as close as you're going to get. And I also love the idea of Minnesota as well. Both of those options, I think, make a lot of sense.
I think Dallas makes a lot of sense too. Maybe as a facilitator to the Los Angeles Lakers. Has that ever happened before? Has Dallas facilitated a big star move? Maybe Kyrie and KD reunite with Luka in Los Angeles. What do you think?
Just stabbing Nick Angstadt in
and if you want Nico Harrison to have to go into protective custody, let him facilitate another deal to the Los Angeles Lakers.
So let's shift gears to the Suns' point of view on this. So they're adamant about wanting to move KD now. They had an opportunity to do it at the trade deadline. KD did not want to go to Golden State, and they were amenable to that. Do you believe the Suns can trade KD this offseason and come out not even in a better position, just in a position to contend next season? Or are they really looking at a multi-year rebuild as the only option, Matt?
It depends on KD is the problem. Is they're going to do what KD wants here? They're not going to send him somewhere that he doesn't want to go. Right? So if he's like, I'm not going to Milwaukee. Thanks, but no. I'm not going to Minnesota. Like, if those two options are out, if it's like LA, hey, come on down, Rui Hachimura. Pack your bags, Dalton Connect. No. If it's Dallas, hey, you get Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. No. But there are ways in which you can actually put together, I think, a pretty good team. Now, let's talk about this Dallas thing, right? Gafford, if they play a drop big with great rim protection and Mike Budenholzer's system, solves the center issue, and you add a versatile forward who can defend and shoot, which of course KD is only the best. That actually there's a way that you can get here, like a new concoction. I always say these things are not linear. It's not just about the talent level. You're not going to get better talent from KD. You're not going to get equal KD. But if you get a lot of different pieces, and then Devin Booker takes a step forward and kind of reasserts himself, I think you can get there. That's why, to me, this is all about those underlying things, those culture things that they've got to solve.
Hayes, really quickly, what lessons did we learn here from all of this, from the Matt Ishbia coming in and giving up everything for Kevin Durant, putting these stars together, it not working out? What do we learn here?
Is that if you're going to manufacture, I think that the overarching thing is manufacture super teams aren't going to work anymore. You're just not going to have that. Now, if you build and draft throughout time and can build one organically, great. But manufactured super teams, we're past that era now.
I'm starting to think Kevin Durant's not going to get that statue. I've been on the fence about it, but I'm starting to really believe it's not going to happen. All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, a lot more ahead. Paul George hitting pause on his podcast. Does it really mean anything for the 76ers' ability to turn things around and get closer to a play-in spot? I'll ask Matt and Hayes that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, live bets can be placed throughout the game. If you missed the opening tip-off, want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback? No problem. You can stay in the action with FanDuel. Looking for a bigger payout? Combine live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for a shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free and daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe, stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Paul George is putting the mic down, at least for now, announcing he's stepping away from his podcast to lock in for the rest of the season. But did his first game post-podcast prove it's the right move? Locked On 76ers had plenty to say. Take a listen.
There are a lot of people who are critical of Paul George, like saying, "Oh, well, the season's just about over." So now you decide to lock in and don't do a podcast and this and that. I take it the opposite way because, right about now, Paul George could easily come out and say, "You know what, y'all? This season is over with. I've been struggling. Right now, I'm basically going to shut it all down." But the fact that he said, you know what, he realized it's never too late to correct a wrong, right? And so now he realizes that, hey, maybe I need to be a little bit more focused. And he comes out and he has a big game. He could have easily said, you know what, we don't know if Joel's going to continue playing. I'm a little bit older. I got injuries too. Let me just shut this thing down because it doesn't seem like we're going to go anywhere.
So Keith Pompey there of Locked On 76ers saying it's never too late. That's kind of my question for Matt. Matt, is this the right move, but is it too late for Paul George? Will it have an impact, or is it just a face-saving move?
I think the intention is genuine. I think Paul George is about the right things. He doesn't necessarily go about it always the right way, and the results haven't yielded it. But I genuinely do believe that Paul George is about the right things when it comes to his professional career. He showed up in shape and tried to play every year. It's never a problem with like Paul George being ready to play. Okay, he's not smoking hookah and drinking beers, right? He's showed up and been ready to play every single night. This isn't just because it's not going to make a difference because the team's not good enough. They have no connection. They're not going to be able to get Embiid back on the floor. Shams Charania reported today that he's having injections before every game just to be able to play. Like Embiid for now is cooked. I'll also point this out. Steph No from Sporting News had a great article today that broke down actually Paul George's stats, but when he doesn't do a podcast and when he does do a podcast before a game, he shoots 43% from the field from 3-point range after doing a podcast. His assists, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and average game score and points per game are all higher after podcasts than not podcasts. So dangerous stuff that he's messing with, Hayes. He's got to keep the podcast going.
I mean, listen, it's too little too late. I mean, I'm sure his heart's in the right place, and that's all fine and dandy that he realized, hey, let me lock in here for the rest of the season. Technically, they're 2.5 games back of the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference. It's right there for the taking. It's not like the Bulls are trying to hold on to it. But at this point, do you even want to? Do the Sixers even want that? So, I mean, I hope that he finishes this season strong. I really hope that he does because, maybe he could be on the market to be shopped this season. So finishing the season strong maybe can help that. But I think overall, it's far too gone for the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, if you watch this team play basketball in the way that they're out there, not to say that they don't have some bright spots. PG has had some. Tyrese Maxey's definitely had a lot. But I think it's time to stick the fork in the Philadelphia 76ers. They're done.
Yeah, so 20-38, right now 12th in the Eastern Conference. They did look much more competitive, which is a massive improvement over what they have looked like against New York in a close loss. And again, PG putting up the numbers 25, 8, and 7 in that loss. And you have to wonder, before he paused the podcast, he was in front of media, disparaging, or not disparaging, but just saying the team didn't look like they had the fight to, be a championship contender. And I guess, can you really do that? Can you be in front of media saying things like that and also be focused on other things? I think that's the question. Another question I have, Hayes, should any player on a team with championship aspirations be spending time podcasting during the regular season? Because I think Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart, they have a podcast. Obviously, Draymond Green has a pretty big podcast for the Golden State Warriors as they look to kind of get back into things. Should any team be doing that in season, or should any player?
I don't want to say no because it just feels like shut up and play basketball type thing. Like, ask somebody who has 4 daily podcasts. I'm a full-time single parent and I have a full-time job. No, yeah. I think you can balance it. I think you had I don't think it's a problem having the podcast. Of course, it's good. Just understand that if you do, the moment that you have a down stretch or whatever else it is, or your team disappoints, people are going to point to the podcast being the reason why. But I think it's easy to balance. Like, players have to have something outside of basketball.
Yeah, I never really understood this whole thing of he should be doing this instead of it. Like, you expect him to. It's 11 p.m. He should be in the gym, and sometimes guys go in and get work done at that late at night on off nights, but. Guys get to have life. You get to have a life outside of work. It is their job. They get to have a life outside of work. You cannot play basketball 24/7. It is okay to have something else that you do. And I just don't necessarily feel like this is a distraction or any sort of problem. It's an hour of their life. They're not checking YouTube comments. They're not unless you're Kevin Durant. They're not.
I was going to say.
So I feel like it's fine for Paul George to do this. I don't think that any player. I don't think it is a problem for players to podcast during playoff runs. It's a lot of P's.
Okay, well, let us know what you think on youtube.com/LockedOnNBA. Leave us a comment in the comment section. In fact, later in the show, we are going to get to a few of your comments for Matt and Hayes. I'm not sure if Shaedon Sharpe has a podcast, but he certainly had one of the best punches of the year. In case you missed it, Portland Trailblazers guard Shaedon Sharpe threw down a dunk last night that I think on its own would have taken the dunk contest crown. What say Locked On Blazers host Mike Richmond?
No, is that with 9 minutes and 35-ish seconds left in the second quarter, Shaedon Sharpe absolutely detonated on my man Justin Champagnie. It's the perfect type of dunk. Just enough runway that you know it's going to happen, right? Just enough runway that allows you to anticipate that the dunk is upon us. But not enough runway to really deeply anticipate it like a fast break dunk where you're like, oh, what's he going to do? Those are not as fun. This was the perfect amount of catch, take a step, into your gather step. Oh my goodness, he's going to try to jump. He jumped from the middle of the paint. He cocks the ball back way behind his head. Champagnie went up with 2 hands to kind of, the courtesy block. No chance. Shaedon just bodies him and moves right past him. Dunks all over.
Okay, fantastic breakdown there from Mike Richmond. Can you think of a gnarlier dunk this season or in recent memory, Matt?
Not in recent memory. It was great. I freaked out. I was doing an NBA bet stream, and I absolutely freaked out over that dunk because they showed it for us, and I was like losing my mind on it. It was a great dunk. Look, the greatest is still going to be DeAndre Jordan. That's always going to be the one for me. He caught him full body all the way. They made gifs of a coffin dropping on top of the man after it. Champagny gets knocked to the side and moves out the way while he's getting dunked on. He challenges the shot, but he moves past it. You have to fully commit for me to actually think it. You got to have more contact on it. Performance by Sharpe, absolutely perfect. He's at, like, by the way, as the Blazers get better, you're going to notice Shaedon Sharpe has some absolute yams. Like, there are crazy dunks that he pulls off almost every single night. This was an absolutely phenomenal one, but I'm not going to put it up there with the all-timers, Hayes.
Yeah, it's one of the best of the season for sure. I think that it's right up there with the Kobe White dunk on Wemby for me. It's an amazing dunk, but all timer, no, he would have had a dunk to have that dunk on somebody like Wemby, somebody like a Jokic or somebody like that for me to say it's an all timer as far as a dunk. But Shaedon Sharpe has hops like out of this world, and let's get him in a dunk contest immediately.
What? He does now lead in. He does now lead in or daily. He got a 113.9 on the dunk score. Why do we have a dunk score? Like, I love stats.
I like it. I love dunk
the dunk score. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a fan of the dunk score.
Why? Explain this to me.
Hayes?
It just gives you something to look at and more things for sports fans to argue about. It's easy to say, yeah, did you see that dunk last night? It was amazing. It adds a little bit extra to say it scored a 130 on the dunk scale. Just for the part of just sports arguments. That's all.
It's the first thing that attempts to give us some language around what makes a dunk awesome. That's what I love about it. It puts some sort of Olympic-style scoring to dunking. I think it should be more utilized in the dunk contest. In fact, let's focus less on Kias and more on some of these dunk scorings. But I think you guys are totally hating on this dunk. I think it was amazing. And Hayes in particular, like, why should it matter who he dunks on? Like, I get it that it maybe presents a little bit of pizzazz to it, but I mean, that dunk just on its own, you take out Champagny, you take out Wemby, you take out anything, like the athleticism required to execute that dunk. And I was listening to Locked On Blazers, and I don't know if you want to believe this or not, but Shaedon Sharpe said that midway through that dunk, he thought to himself, I may have taken off too soon and had to like figure it out in the middle of that dunk to actually throw it down. I think it was amazing. I have one final question on this. It's something I'm always curious about and have argued about on Locked On Hornets a couple of times. Are you pro Champagny trying to stop the dunk? Like, do you respect the guy who says, all right, I'm not going to make the business decision. I'm going to step in here. Even if I'm going to be put on a poster, I'm going to step in here and do that. Do you respect that? Or do you say, you know what, better just to step out of the way, Matt?
You have to. Do not be one of those guys. Do not be one. Look, there are business decisions that I will respect. And like, I understand it's part of it. The only instance I can really recall, go look up LeBron James, Jason Terry. Jason should have made a business decision. That's the only one. I love this quote from Alonzo Mourning, by the way, over my shoulder. Sign ball for my guy. Either you're going to block the shot or get dunked on. And believe me, I've caught more shots and blocked more shots than I've gotten dunked on. That's the mentality you need to have. I'm going to challenge it. No business decisions. Go make a play. I absolutely love Champagny doing that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when you make that business decision, it's understandable in some cases, but I do respect more for players that stand in there and don't back down. Like try to make a play of the ball. Try to. You have to respect. We talk about so much of softness around basketball. No, go out there and try to make a play.
Better to make a poster for getting yammed on than never make a poster at all, I say.
Accurate.
Coming up, part of history.
That's right. Coming up on Locked On NBA, we've got your questions, your comments for Matt and Hayes from our YouTube channel. Plus, the Detroit Pistons, they put the entire Boston Celtics roster on a poster last night. We'll talk about it on the other side. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up today at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. The Detroit Pistons extend their winning streak to 8 games with a 20-point victory over the Boston Celtics last night, holding Boston's vaunted offense to under 100 points. Let's get the reaction from Locked On Pistons host Kuka Hill, which I'm sure will exhibit the calm, measured, stoic sensibilities we've come to expect from Koo.
Talk to him, Koo.
I'm kidding. He wilded out.
Dominated the Boston Celtics. They won this game by 20 points. Joel Mazzulla emptied out the bench with around 4 minutes left in this game. It's not like they were going against the B team. They were missing one dude. They still have 3 other damn near all-stars on their team. The Pistons came out here and showed up and showed out and took down the Boston Celtics to win 8 games in a row. The Pistons are in a position where they are actually fighting for not just the playoffs, not just to win a playoff game. They are fighting to have home court advantage in the playoffs. Who the hell would have believed you if you said this 7 months ago when you were watching the worst season in Pistons history? There is no one that could have expected this team to be this good already.
Kuka Hill is reincarnated Macho Man Randy Savage. You will not convince me otherwise. That man can cut a wrestling promo. Okay, did you expect the Pistons to be this good, this fast? They were absolutely miserable for the past couple of seasons. And if you did expect it, who do you give the most credit to, Hayes?
Coaching. I think coaching makes a huge difference here. Not only that, but Cade Cunningham is actually turned into a star in front of our eyes. Now, is he going to hit that next level of superstar? That remains to be seen over the next couple of years on next episode of Dragon Ball Z. But I do think that it's coaching is a big part of it. Having a coach that actually believes in this roster. You've added key veterans as well. But Cade Cunningham and just what he's blossomed into this season right in front of our eyes, I got to give him a lot of credit for where the Detroit Pistons are right now.
I did not think they were going to be this good. I went into the season and I was like, I'm betting the win total over on the Detroit Pistons. That was my biggest position. And I still somehow take an L because I was asked like, oh, do you want them for the playoffs? And I was like, no, they're not going to get anywhere near the playoffs. They'll just win like 30 games. And yet here they are. JB Bickerstaff has done such an incredible job. Just an absolutely amazing job. Last season, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA when it comes to where you get shots from. Like they took the worst shots. JB Bickerstaff has them up to 14th. They were all the way down at 24th last year. It's a 10-spot jump. Just take better shots. I think that the new front office with Trajan Langdon deserves credit for bringing in veterans like Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley. I think JB Bickerstaff deserves credit. I think Cade deserves credit. I think Asar Thompson, who absolutely crossed Jason Tatum out of his shoes, deserves credit. I think Jalen Durant, Isaiah Stewart, the training staff, the ushers in the building. Give them all credit. Barry Sanders, everybody in Detroit, the fans, everyone deserves credit for this turnaround for Detroit, and I'm so happy to see it. Detroit basketball.
Is there any play? Because I'm so glad you brought up Asar Thompson, because I don't think there's any player in the league right now that I'm more excited to see in a 7-game playoff series than Asar Thompson. I mean, just the menace that he is defensively. And it might be his brother, Amen Thompson.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's men.
Okay. We asked and you delivered your comments on our debates here on Locked On NBA. And we want to read, I want to read a few. I don't know if Matt Moore wants me to read a few, but I want to read a few of the best, what we're calling shouts from the Stanosphere. You love your team, and we love that you love your team and express it sometimes violently in our comments section. All right, here we go. First shout, and this is from @Abel Aria on our discussion on Jason Tatum being underappreciated. Matt Moore, to say that Jason Tatum is not a top 5 player is absolutely ridiculous and disrespectful. What is he elite at? How about availability? Also, just because he's not a better playmaker than Nikola Jokic doesn't mean he's not an elite playmaker. Matt.
It's not.
Congrats for showing up to work. Good golf clap for you, Jason Tatum. You win the award for what the minimum required is. No, look, Jason's awesome. Look, I'll say this. If I had an MVP ballot this year, Tatum would be 4th for me. I think Tatum's got to be 4th because of the success that the Celtics have had. It's just like when we're actually evaluating these guys based off of the overall production, I think Jason's best seasons are ahead of him. But also, look, he's a good playmaker, but I can run down the list of guys that are better playmakers. Donovan Mitchell's a better playmaker. Tyrese Halliburton's a better playmaker. On, down. Tatum's biggest thing for me is his two-way ability defensively and offensively. But like I said, you got to have something that you're absolutely elite at, and it's not showing up to work. Come on. But you could do better than that, Boston fans. Come on.
The best ability is availability.
There it is.
I mean, Jason Tatum is amazing. And I think that's, regardless of where Matt or anybody else has him ranked, and I think you need to listen. This is where people lose critical thinking at. When you go back and listen to the way that Matt explained and talked about Jason Tatum, he said basically everything that you said. Like, he didn't say that Jason Tatum wasn't a great player. It's amazing to me how people get so caught up on wanting to hear their opinion come out of somebody else's mouth. And if it's not that, then it means that they're somehow off bases. And Matt actually talked very glowingly about Jason Tatum. He just said he's not top 5.
Got to be accurate.
All right. Let's do 2 more rapid fire here. This one is going to come from @DebWildcat on who will lead the Mavs post Luka. I couldn't believe my ears when Matt said that Dallas doesn't have leadership without Luka. I used to love watching Luka play with Dallas, but the last thing he was good was a good leader. The last thing he was good at was a good leader. Head down, ball chucking, complaining, that was the problem. Kyrie has been the leader in that locker room and on the floor. PJ is stepping into that role. They will be fine. Matt, since you got called out, you'll get first crack at this as well.
I mean, look, I think the answer is here. They don't have leadership. I'm not necessarily saying like that's the thing. That's why I said that the run last year was really fluky. I don't think they have leadership. Kyrie's not a leader. We got like a billion years of evidence of this guy. He has a career before he showed up in Dallas. He's not a leader. PJ might be, but your best leader can't be a role player like that. I wish it was true, but Ty Lue like told me in a press conference, he was like, if it's not your best player, then the leadership is just talk. And that's the same kind of deal here. They don't have a leadership structure right now, which makes sense because Nico Harrison's running the show.
Nice.
And to say that PJ Washington is a leader when he just had more turnovers than made buckets in an important game, I don't know how you could say that. I mean, you have to actually lead on the court as well. Yeah, there's in the locker room leaders who at least are guys that rally the team around each other, but you need a leader on that basketball court. Maybe you can make the conversation for Kyrie, but PJ coming up in that comment? Come on, man.
@Aldswin says on OKC's road to a title, a healthy Mavs team with Luka was the Thunder's greatest rival in the Western Conference this season, and the last. With Mavs in shambles, the road to the finals has become easier. Hayes.
I mean, yeah, I do think Dallas were great rivals to the OKC Thunder, but to say that they were their biggest when a world in which the Denver Nuggets exist seems a bit odd to me. So, I think I don't think they're going to have an easy road to the finals. Did it get easier with Luka not being there? I mean, he's still in the Lakers, and that can make it difficult as well. So I still think Denver is the biggest threat to the OKC Thunder.
They've actually had the edge over Denver, though, in these matchups. I think it's an interesting question. Here's another thing real quick. The double big lineup is actually causing some consternation in OKC. It's notably worse than the other combinations. Now they're trying to work through it and figure it out. But here's a question: if they face Dallas and they've got AD and they've got Gafford and they've got Lively, which are a bunch of ifs, but if they get there, are we sure that this matchup is all of a sudden better? I think some of the Thunder folks think it is because Luke is gone and he did dictate a lot, but they're still going to have problems because of if you can't guard Anthony Davis. All of a sudden, everything that you've built, that starts getting torn apart. You have to help, and that causes real problems. I don't think OKC's out of the woods yet.
All right, let us know what you think on YouTube, and we may read your comment on the next Shouts from the Stanosphere. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for all of their expertise. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow to wrap up the week with our favorite things on Locked On NBA.